But once that's resolved, then it's easier to go cross-border. But cross-border's got its own challenges because then people are worried about money laundering and so on and so on. But those are hurdles that I think are not insurmountable. And the objective is to achieve exactly what you've outlined, which is to say that we actually want a seamless continent, right? Certainly telecommunications is where we're starting, and that's where we've pushed. But we need to see that in other more difficult sectors as well.
Hi, my name is Tayo Uyeto. I work with PwC. My question is in relation to one of the slides you put up earlier on, which was the addition of the S to the BRIC countries and BRIC economies, which of course was a positive thing for South Africa and having a voice for Africa in the forum. Just the question really was what your views were on what impact that would have over the coming years on various things from, foreign direct investment, people's external perceptions, etc., and all that. What are your views generally? Okay.
Well, I mean, this is obviously, as you know, a very hot topical potato at the moment. My view on it is that maybe even Jim O'Neill, who coined the phrase, excuse me, from Goldman Sachs, when he coined it, of course, it was based very much on very hard criteria, population size, growth, reserves, and whatever the parameters were. And of course, people are really saying, well, how does South Africa qualify, et cetera, et cetera. I would most probably say that I guess the concept of BRICS was so good that it outlived, or let's say it grew beyond its narrow parameters. It got to a point where it was probably now seen really as a political discussion, a seat at the table on what's really happening in the world. So, and I think that's where it's moved to. I mean, this is on my humble, impression of it. I'm not representing anybody. And to answer your question specifically, I think that's a positive thing, because really what it's really then saying is, Africa as a continent, okay, and let's put the fact that it's South Africa for the moment, but Africa as a continent is now represented at this table of fast and rapidly growing economies. And the issue is, the question that I asked the last slide is to say, well, where do we fit in all of this? Because if it's all happening above our heads and we are not participants, surely we are worse off. So I think one can only assume that the impact in the medium term is going to be positive, notwithstanding all sorts of detracting arguments people make. I don't see the downside to it. I can see it only as a positive move. I think there were some questions here as well.
Good evening. My name is Christian, Udejko Christian. I work with Business in Africa. Yeah. One of the slides you showed of actually gave a picture of the total size of various regional markets, but split into specific country markets, they become unattractive for infrastructure investments, you said. My question is, I understand you're no longer with MTN, as you did say, but companies such as MTN, by the nature of their business and the proven track record of their profitability, are, in a sense, entities that are in a position to become national boundary breakers, as it were, and strengthen the drive towards regional integration. And I believe that there are very few organizations that operate in the utilities sector that have as much capacity to make a case for regional infrastructure investment as MTN does. Yep. Now, so if ever the borderless economies in the regions are going to happen, it will have to be entities like MTN and Co. that actually drive it. Are there such thinking or any specific activities or policies going on, whether in the telecom sector or in the others, that you're aware that, is actively working within a timeline for fulfillment? Thank you.
Yeah. I think the reality is yes. I mean, if you had to try and list the number of forums that we have on this continent to discuss these sort of matters, you'd run out of paper, right? There are many. Right up to the most senior forum where they are talking about infrastructure and so on. The problem is the doing, in the sense that a lot of these concepts are remaining as visions, maybe good solid visions, but they're remaining on paper. And the only way that they can start happening is through the creation of fairly significant companies of substance that are African-owned, controlled, all right, to participate in these projects. Because governments, with all due respect, are governments. They are driven by completely different things. They might help set the framework, but we have to do it. So if you look at MTN, MTN is really just one company. And what we need is 10 MTNs, or 20, in different sectors. So I don't think there's a shortage of very comprehensive papers, fairly detailed plans. I mean, if you went to SADC, ECOWAS, et cetera, they have got many units. There was also the, how can I forget the name now? Started in South Africa some years back. NEPAD, right? There are also many, agendas and policies and proposals and so on. The problem is there is no capacity to execute. And that's really what people sitting in these sort of rooms need to be doing. Because we can't always say, well, when's government going to do this? And you came out with a 5-year plan, but nothing has happened, and really. I think the growth of a middle class in Africa, which is incidentally one of the big things that I think is overlooked, is really the size of this rapidly growing middle class. Needs to be transformed into institutions of a commercial nature that have got substance, have got balance sheets, and can start doing some of these projects. We can't always ask the Chinese to do a bridge for copper, or it's just not sustainable.
All right, at this time, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for. We are really running late. Please let's give Mr. Ngaleka another round of applause.
Thanks.
And if you'd be kind enough to stay for the final announcements, we'd really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
We're very grateful for Mr. Ngaleka for coming down here, flying all the way from Johannesburg today. We know it's been a long day for most people, so we're just going to have a quick closing message from the president of the Africa Club, and then we're going to break for drinks and for more informal networking.
Africa Day is the flagship annual event for the Africa Club here at London Business School. This year is the 10th anniversary of Africa Day, and I can confidently say that the day has been a success, and the conference has grown consistently over the years, both in size and in quality. The challenge facing future Africa Club committees will be to continue to make the day and the conference better and better. Firstly, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for joining us here today. The conference is richer because of your contribution and your presence here today, and we're grateful that many of you were able to join us. As you can imagine, a conference like this cannot take place without the support of many, many people. And I'd like to extend a special thank you to our sponsors, GSK, AFREN, and Diageo. In fact, today we're fortunate to be joined by Mr. Lekana Suni, the Managing Director for West Africa for GSK. And GSK has been a consistent supporter of Africa Day for no less than 6 years, and we're very grateful for their support. I'd also like to thank many friends of the Africa Club, particularly members of the Global Advisory Council of the school, as well as the Office of Distinguished Friends, who are incredibly generous with their support. The Africa Club, and I must say, unlike many clubs at the school, is very fortunate to have consistent and enthusiastic support from our alumni. And I want to thank them specifically today for helping us this year and every year to make this conference the success that it is. We're also grateful to our speakers. We've had a very high caliber of speakers this year, and we're very grateful to them for sharing their insights, their experiences, and for making the sacrifice of their time and resources to join us here today and to challenge and engage us throughout the day. Thank you very much. And finally, I'd like to thank and acknowledge the team that put together Africa Day. We've had an enormous team put together the day, led by a core team. Thank you so much for your persistence, for your creativity, for your resourcefulness, and for your hard work. It's been a long journey, but I think it has paid off with a successful Africa Day conference. If you could give them a round of applause, please. And ladies and gentlemen, on that note of continuously improving the day for people who hopefully will be here next year, could we ask you to fill in the feedback forms that you'll find in your packs and hand them in at reception before you leave? And this will help us to really continue on a track of continuous improvement that we aspire to. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to the new co-presidents of the Africa Club. It's been a real honor for myself and my co-president, Ogbemi Ofuya, to lead the club over the past year. We were tempted to hold on to power, to aspire to the title of president for life, but some recent events on the continent helped us. And so I'd like to introduce the new co-presidents, Richard Mensaba and Toyin Johnson. I hope they're in the room. No. They've been very involved in the club over the past year, and we're confident that they will continue to do a good job and deliver this and better next year. Once again, thank you very much for joining us today. We hope to see you again at the next Africa Day 2012. Thank you very much. We do have a drinks reception downstairs, and we'll be grateful if you could join us and continue networking into the evening. Thank you.